Hey guys, Mr. Hanks here. Welcome to Lesson 3 for Unit 4, Chapter 3. And today we kind of hit rock bottom. Not really rock, but dust bottom, you could say. This is one of the lessons that kind of did not make the Great Depression better. In fact, it hurt. People died from this situation. So our objective for the day, describe the causes and effects of the Dust Bowl. Okay. Our bell ringer, why do you believe farmers rotate their crops every few years? What are the benefits for the soil? Okay. And that's a little science stuff we're going to kind of talk about in class 2 and everything. Overnight, you have 3 readings and each one needs to be analyzed. Okay. So we kind of have Franklin Roosevelt, now president and everything like that. I'm kind of skipping around with some lessons and stuff like that, but it's important we kind of know what the Dust Bowl is, why that's all important and stuff like that. So I just want you to know, when you're reading these 3, especially starting with Roosevelt's court packing strategy, the reason why Roosevelt wanted to expand the court was to prevent the justices from declaring parts of his New Deal unconstitutional. The New Deal was heavily needed, and that was his plan to deal with the Great Depression. So let's just keep that in mind. So we're going to start with Roosevelt's court packing strategy. Beginning in the mid-1930s, the court, like many of those whose members were politically conservative, struck down several important pieces of the New Deal legislation. Roosevelt hoped to add justices to the court who would look more favorably upon his policies. Stop me if you've heard this recently. To gain support for his plan, he criticized the advanced age of many of the court members. 6 of the 9 justices were over the age of 70. I mean, if you think about it now, they're all old nowadays. So, though Roosevelt's court packing scheme was widely criticized, included by some members of his own party, Democrats had such a large majority in both houses of Congress that the idea would likely have passed. However, after Justice Owen Roberts unexpectedly began voting to uphold much of New Deal legislation, the so-called switch in the time that had saved 9, Roosevelt no longer had the congressional votes he needed to pass his court reform proposal. So keep that in mind as you read. For this one, I want you to roll through, answer the note-taking and everything like that. You have 2 questions to go with this. So why did Roosevelt introduce his court packing proposal? Why did many Americans oppose President Roosevelt's court packing strategy? Remember, Roosevelt wanted to appoint new justices to the court for the purpose of gaining a majority who would vote in favor of his New Deal legislation, and many Americans saw that legislation as an attack on the Constitution's checks and balances. They didn't want the president to be able to manipulate the court at his will. Oh, I'll add, you'll keep doubling the court just so you maintain a majority, everything. Because remember, if you're a Supreme Court justice, you only can, be kicked out of office if you're found guilty of a crime you committed after you've been inaugurated as a Supreme Court justice. If you die or if you retire. There are no term limits. There's no time limit to the time you serve as a Supreme Court justice. So a pretty sweet deal, as long as you stay out of trouble and don't kick the bucket. Our second reading is the Dust Bowl itself. So like I said, there's no real questions to go with this. I just want students to kind of know a few things about the Dust Bowl, where it took place, like Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, because which California says attracted large numbers of migrants from the Dust Bowl region. So kind of know that too. And it's a real quick thing of what caused the Dust Bowl, like a combination of drought and the agriculture practice of replacing native grasses with plowed fields, how the Dust Bowl impact life on other countries, stuff like that. So dust clouds reached East Coast cities. Many migrants moved to other cities and states to escape the Dust Bowl. And food that was being produced in Dust Bowl states was scarce, so food prices became higher as well. I wouldn't, you tend to look back and you're like, oh yeah, I could beat that old thing back in the day. We have a higher immune system. The sinuses would have killed me. I wouldn't have survived this time period. And we'll kind of come back to Dust Bowl. Another real quick reading I want students to go through is the growth of unions. Just to kind of get an idea on that, I have 3 questions to go with that, the notes and everything. What was the difference about unions that grew during the Great Depression as compared to earlier unions? What did the United Auto Workers sit-down strikes lead to? And what did in poverty in California's did California propose? Sorry about that. Just know new unions were organized by industry but contained workers of all skill levels this time. In the months following the UAW sit-down strikes, its membership increased to 1 million. And the EPIC in poverty in California called for like guaranteed pensions, tax reforms, and massive public works programs. And that's just to kind of get us through that part of the reading, everything like that. Just some little side facts. So our main menu today is the Dust Bowl as our primary resource, and it will be presented in the form of a gallery walk. So students are going to be kind of walking around, and it's going to be like a detective style thing, like what caused it or the effects of it, like and there's a lot of science involved in this because this is a lot to do with agriculture and agricultural practices. So that's what we're going to kind of be doing for that. We'll take some notes, look at a couple of primary source analysis, and then end with our DOK question to a so we're gonna think. I want my students to come up with a plan that farmers could have implemented to prevent that soil erosion during the Dust Bowl. What could they have done? What could they have done to, better off? And this is just like where people moved, at which areas were affected in the Great Depression, where people moved, migrated to, and places like that to safety. And our exit ticket for the day, how the Dust Bowl impact life in other parts of the country. So not just the area directly affected, but people indirectly affected as well. So yeah. Know that for the lesson. And I will see you guys in the next video. Hanks out.